All right, we're back. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode number 145. This week, we're here to talk about Incantation from 2022. It's on Netflix. I don't know if it was made as a Netflix movie. I just think Netflix bought it later because I think it came out in theaters. It's the highest grossing movie in Taiwan history, I do believe. But I think like Netflix bought the rights to it. And so, because if you watch it, it's like, Netflix is labeled everywhere. It's like in the opening credits and at the end and stuff. So I think Netflix owns it right now, but, it's not like a made for Netflix movie. Anyway, Incantation, apparently this movie was trending on TikTok. People were very afraid on TikTok by watching this movie. And we watched one similar to that when we watched Megan is Missing that was trending on TikTok because people were afraid of it. The difference between Megan is Missing and this movie's actually good. And Megan is Missing was a piece of trash. I'm going to give this one a 6.5. It's pretty dang good. It's found footage. It's pretty long for a found footage movie. It's an hour and 54 minutes, 52 minutes, so almost a 2-hour runtime, which, usually you throw on a found footage movie, it's over in an hour 25 or something. Like, it's usually a very short, runtime on these things. But this one, it's a long movie. I don't think it was too long. There's some movies where it's like, okay, you feel the runtime getting up there. But I never felt really like, all right, this one's going to. I feel like everything, like it was the perfect length for what they were going for. Yeah, and I don't think it overstayed its welcome. I think it ended when it was supposed to. Now, to be fair, if it went a little longer, it probably would have been, stretching it a little bit. But I think they got away with it in the end. Anyway, hey, spoiler warning for Incantation. I'm going to ruin everything about it. So if you've never seen it, it's free. It's on Netflix. Well, it's not free because you got to pay for Netflix. But, so go check it out if you don't want to be spoiled by me talking about it first. And anyway, you've been warned. The movie starts off with the main character, Ronan is her name. And she's talking about how, like, you can trick your brain very easily and, all this shit. And she does, like if you spend fucking 5 minutes on Facebook, you would see one of these where it's like, oh, it's a Ferris wheel, but use your brain to move it where it's moving to the right and then it's moving to the left. And you do that, and then it's like a train, close up of a train going through a tunnel, and it's like, all right, make it so it's going left, but now it's going right, And she's like, this is how you can, trick your brain into believing these sort of things. And then it cuts in like footage. There's like a bitch like throat singing, like, oh, is that throat singing? I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but she's like throat singing, and we see this little girl who her skin is all fucking like muddy, black, dark looking, and like veins it looks like are popping out, and she opens her mouth, and her mouth is full of teeth. Like her like where her tongue and shit is, it's all teeth, and just real fucked up looking. And then it cuts back to that lady talking, and she's telling us about this curse that affects people, and it's a curse. Not only it's kind of a fucked curse, because you're cursed regardless with this curse. But if you try to understand more about the curse that's fucking you up, you'll get even more fucked up. The more you understand about the curse, the more you get fucked up. And to demonstrate that, we see this clip of a mom and a dad with like their daughter in the back seat, and they're driving, and they're talking about like, oh, what's the master gonna think, and what's the master gonna do, and all this shit. And they're going through an intersection, and a fucking car smacks into them, and it was like, oh shit, So the mom's dead on impact. The mom is fucked up, right? The dad is still alive, and he gets up and gets out of the car just in time for a semi-truck to come and smash into him and kill him. And the daughter is like screaming from the back seat. I'm going to be honest, I don't know if that was a random clip or if that was Ronan showing like her parents die. I'm going to lean towards it was probably Ronan because it does seem kind of random just for that to be in the movie for no reason. And plus Ronan, she talks about, this curse. It's been with her since, she was a little girl and she could see bad people and all this shit. So I'm going to assume that was Ronan in the back seat and that was her parents dying. But anyway, so this curse is fucked. The more you learn about it, the more you're going to get fucked up by it, So she wants us to watch these tapes with her to help figure out what's going on with this curse. And she wants us to remember these symbols. There's this one, like it's like a drawing of a symbol. There's another one where it's like a fucking gang sign and shit, and you're throwing it up. And she wants us to remember all this. She wants us to remember this chant that keeps playing over and over again and help us solve the case of this curse. And I was like, hold up, bitch. Didn't you just tell me that the more I learn about this curse, the more I'm going to get fucked up? I was like, And I'm 100% honest with you guys. 100% honest. There's points in this movie where they're showing you stuff. And I went, I turned... I turned my head. I was like, you're not getting me, bitch. I done gone too long in this life to be got by a fucking Netflix curse. It ain't happening, so you better try it with someone else. Anyway, after all this is over, we get into the main movie, and it starts off with Ronan talking to, I believe it's like her grandmother or something. Like I don't know. It was this older lady. And she's talking about how excited she is that Dodo, her daughter, is coming back home to live with her. And the lady says, yeah, but it's just a trial run. And, they got to make sure you're fit to take care of her. And remember, you have prior, incidents that will, could affect it or whatever. So you're on a short leash. So she's like, don't get too happy. You still got a lot of work till the daughter is fully, yours. They go to, I guess I'll call it an orphanage. I don't know 100% if it is, but it's where the daughter is. So I'm going to assume that it's an orphanage. And they meet up with her there. And there's this dude there who I don't think I ever caught his name. But he's just like a teacher or like the head orphanage guy. And Dodo calls him dad or daddy or, and shit. And he's like, oh, I don't know why she started calling me that. But, he doesn't have kids of his own. So he's like, oh, I kind of like it or whatever. They're like, okay, Dodo, be good for your mom. You're going to go live with her. And Dodo's real quiet. She's kind of like, oh, okay. Gathered from prior evidence throughout the movie, I don't think Dodo really had known her mom all that much. So I don't know how many interactions they've had with each other up to this point, but Dodo's very, nervous and shy around her and shit. As they're loading her up into the car and getting all her things, we get a flashback to 6 years before this takes place, where we see the mom in a mental asylum and she's in a therapy session. And in this therapy session, she's talking about how this curse she has, affects everyone around her. And, the same shit we already learned about. The more you know about it, the more it'll fuck you up. And she says this is why she gave up her baby. And the woman's like, oh, well, nothing had happened to your baby. And the mom's like, yeah, that's the point. I gave her away before anything could happen to her. And I was like, all right, that's some G shit. And honestly, throughout the movie, I was like, I'm gonna be honest, like I know you don't want, I know you would rather have your daughter with you, but the best bet was probably just leaving her, leaving her by herself, because you're fucking everything up for her. Um, so we get that little snippet, and then we go back to the present, and the mom is taking Dodo home. It's real awkward on the drive home. Like, they don't know how to talk to each other. The mom tries to talk to Dodo, but, Dodo's not very talkative with her. When they get home, the mom's like, all right, how about I try to teach you how to write your name? And we learn that her real name isn't Dodo. It's, let's see if I have it written down. Hold on. It's Chin La Tong, or something like that. And that's her real name, and she wants her to learn it. So I guess she's just been calling herself Dodo, and everyone else calls her Dodo because they're not full, they don't, she doesn't know how to say her own name or write it or anything. Plus, she might not have told those people that her real name was that when she gave her up. She might have just said, "Oh, it's Dodo" or whatever, But anyway, yeah, we learned that that's her real name. Throughout the night, they're warming up to each other. They're having a good time and shit. And of course, in the middle of this good time, they hear a fucking window break, and I was like, "Ah, shit, it's already fucking started," And the mom goes in to check. By the way, the found footage. How anytime we watch a found footage movie, I always say there better be a good reason for these people to keep filming during all this. The reason in this movie is the mom is making a video diary because she, since she missed so much of Dodo's life, she wants to keep track of everything from this point on, and Dodo can watch it when she grows up, later, which is cool. It's something that I would like. I don't have. There's some old tapes of me as a kid. But it's one of them things where it's like, all right, that's, that's always a cool thing to do. I will say, though, she goes out and buys like a whole ass video camera to do this, but it takes place in 2022 because there's smartphones and everything. Like, you could just do all this on your phone, but I digress, whatever. She goes and checks the window, and sure enough, it's fucking busted. The weird thing, though, there's like a cockroach sitting there surrounded by broken glass. And I was like, is that supposed to say that the cockroach fucking broke the window, Well, I'm going to move. Let's see. Ooh, I'm moving the camera. Ooh. I don't know. I seemed really low down there for some reason. I'm going to move my ass back up. Anyway, so they get everything, she cleans it up. She gets everything ready for bed. That night, the lady Ronan's filming herself and she's talking to the camera again when the lights fucking turn out all around her, and she gets up and she like flicks the switch back on, but the lights don't come back on, like the power's out, and she's like, what the fuck, we hear some shuffling going around in the kitchen, and she walks into the kitchen and the refrigerator door is open and like some milk is spilling out onto the floor, and she's like, fuck, what is this? That was a decoy though, because then, she turns around and this light is flicking on and off by itself. And she follows it, and it leads out into the hallway. The weird thing is, she just had the door open, like it was already open. Either that or the ghost opened it, but you never see like the door. You never saw it close to begin with, so I have no reference of whether or not the ghost is the one that opened it up. But it leads out into the hallway, and she lives in this apartment. So it's just like a stairway, and there's an elevator right outside of her door. And as she goes outside, we hear this woman crying. And it was like, oh, fuck, what is this, And then here's a note that I like. Keep in mind, this is all text-to-speech as I'm watching this. I go, why the fuck is there an elevator here? Like, oh my god, a woman just screamed and scared the shit out of me. And that's exactly what happened, because that woman who you hear crying, I think, if I remember right, Ronan's like putting her ear closer to the elevator, and then a fucking scream goes off. And it scared I wasn't ready for it. It scared the shit out of me. Ronan goes back inside. She shuts the door, locks everything up like that's going to stop the fucking ghost. She goes to check on the daughter, and the daughter's still asleep in the bed. And then the ghost takes a shit and flushes the toilet. And the mom goes in to look at the ghost shit going down the drain. But that, once again, another decoy, because she goes back and now the daughter's out of the bed. The daughter's it looks like she's being dragged away. So the mom follows after her, and it ends up being that, like, the daughter was just, like, sleepwalking, but she probably is possessed sleepwalking, because she does, like, start growling in her sleep. And eventually she, like, walks back to her bedroom and stands on the bed and puts the cover over her and just starts screaming and shit. So it's probably not normal sleepwalk. It's probably spooky, possessed girl sleepwalk. But, you know, either way, she was sleepwalking. So yeah, she starts screaming. And as this is happening, by the way, the mom's trying to stop her and the camera falls down, and on the floor we see that symbol that we were supposed to memorize from earlier. After this, we cut to a different tape, and I thought that we were going to have, like, different people being cursed or something, but no, it ends up being Ronan's here too, and this fucking fucked me up, okay? Because the tape is called Ghostbusters, or Ghostbusters Now or something. And Ronan's here, and it's her boyfriend and, like, the boyfriend's brother or cousin, because they're part of the same family. And they're on their way to this village that their, like, uncle and stuff lives at, where they do this fucking praying ritual and shit. But they're going here because there's this tunnel that supposedly is like, you're not allowed to enter the tunnel and bad shit happens to you. And, you know, they're a YouTube channel, so they're going to go solve the fucking case of this tunnel. They get here, and, oh, by the way, as they're driving there, they're filming the intro when the car, like, stops all of a sudden. They're like, what the fuck is that? And they get out, and somehow this Buddha statue, like, got stuck in between the wheel and, like, the frame of the car or whatever, and, like, stalled them. And they're like, oh, that's weird, and they just toss it to the side, you know? So they go up into this village, and it's this weird, like, hobo fucking village, and the uncle comes running over. He's real happy to see, like, his family, but he's like, yo, who the fuck is this bitch? I told you don't bring any outsiders. And they're like, listen, this is, dude's girlfriend. She's cool. And he's like, nah, fuck that. You can drive back and come back later, you know? And that's it. They're going to kick her out. But before they can kick her out, this old lady comes walking over and, like, sticks her whole body in the car and grabs the lady's hand and, like, looks at it and shit. And she's like, she can stay. So they let Ronan stay for some reason. They walk through the village. They're getting taken to their room, and on the way, you know, they see, like, this girl getting, like, tattooed on the back and shit with all these symbols. And this is what fucked me up, because they're in the room, okay? And as they're in the room, the one dude asks Ronan, how does it feel to have her daughter back? And Ronan's like, oh, you know, it's new or whatever, okay? And then there's these fucking worms that we had seen some dude, like, picking them in the, like, the farm or area or whatever. And they're these weird CGI, like, they're not real worms. If you look at them, they're these CGI worms. And they're everywhere in this room. And they start freaking out. And they're killing them. And then Ronan gets a phone call in the thing. And it goes into Dodo bit someone at school. And she has to come pick him up. And it's like she's leaving, okay? And I swear this is what's happening. But all of this is in the past. Like, this is not real. Like, that's not what happened. So I don't know who he was talking about with, are you happy your daughter's back home? Because also, we'll learn later, she's pregnant with Dodo in these videos. So, yeah, it fucked me up forever. So I thought that this was all part of the same timeline. Like, this was present day, and she kept coming back to this place with these people, but it's not. It's the old videotape. So this intro fucked me up for a while, but this is a old tape that we're watching that is part of the story. Now everyone hydrate after I said all that. It looks so stupid. Just pulling out a fucking just big as my head out of the frame to drink, but that's how I stayed strapped with the gallon bottle. So anyway, we go back to, I guess, present time, where Ronan gets called into school because Dodo bit some kid. And she tells the mom that she bit him because he keeps picking on her and calling her crazy and stuff, and the mom's like, okay, but still, you don't go around biting people and shit. That night, everyone's about to go to sleep at home. But Dodo starts yelling for her mom to come in to her room. And she tells him that there's a bad guy on the ceiling. And she's like, you need to get him to get down or whatever. But there's no one there. But Dodo's like, he's right there. Look at him, And so the mom's like, okay. And she's like, get down, bad guy, And then the daughter's like, you have to lead him by hand. And the mom's like, fuck. Okay, so she just like reaches her hand up there. And the daughter's like, okay, you have his hand. And she tries to lead him out of the room. But they get to like the door, and when the guy when Ronan walks through, the bad guy apparently stays inside because the daughter's like, no, you need to leave, So anyway, just more creepy shit going on. After this, the next day, Dodo is at school, and the mom fucking plants a camera inside of her teddy bear and shit. And inside of her teddy bear in her room. And as she does this, her nose starts bleeding. And she's like, oh, fuck, And she goes and she's cleaning it up. So, like, we see, okay, like, the mom's getting worse at this point. Also, as I'm saying this, I think I'm just... No, or did they use this teddy bear camera? Because now that I'm thinking, there is a couple scenes I think, like, you're able to see some shit that you... I don't know if they ever used this teddy bear camera that she planted here. Huh. That's weird that they would put that in there. And there was never... I think it is, though, because I think the kid carries the teddy bear around with her throughout, and we see, like, points of view. I'm not 100% sure, though. They might have never used this teddy bear angle. After this, we randomly cut to footage that I guess the principal of the school shot on his phone of him playing hide and seek with Dodo, and she runs into like the hallway, and we see just two big ass arms stretch out to like caress her head, and the principal sees this too because he's like, he takes in a breath as he sees it. And then when they do a replay and they slow it down and they make it black and white as if we couldn't see that happen the first time. But yeah, that happens and they never acknowledge it. That guy never tells the mom, hey, check out this fucking footage I got of your daughter with this ghost dude in the hallway. After that, we cut back over to the Ghostbusters footage in the temple area. They're doing the ritual that they were supposed to do earlier before when we got pulled away. As they're doing the ritual, they mention, this is the first time they mention it, that they tell Ronan, you're gonna have to come back here every 10 years to pray, and especially pray for the baby that's growing inside of you, for Mother Buddha and shit like that. And so that's the I don't think even she knew she was pregnant at that point, because she's like, what? And then later she's like, oh fuck, I'm pregnant, so I think that's how she learned she was pregnant, because this fucking creepy scary bitch told her that she was carrying a baby for Mother Buddha. That night they're supposed to stay inside their room in the temple, but they're like, fuck that, we're sneaking out. So they go sneak out to look for this tunnel that they're not supposed to, go inside of. The whole reason they came here. But this little girl catches them like snooping around. And she's like, you people, follow me, you know? So she takes them back to the room that they did the ritual in. And she tells the two guys to stay outside, but tells the girl to come inside with her. So they go inside, and the little girl's like, stay here. And she crawls underneath this table. The Ronin stays, and she's filming, and we see all these Buddha statues, like, turned around, facing the opposite direction and shit. They're turned around, and they're facing a painting on the wall of the symbol that we're supposed to memorize. Also, the ceiling is dripping blood. It's like this weird fucking... it looks like mold, but it's blood mold. And it's bleeding down onto the floor below. The little girl eventually comes out from under the table, and she has this tin box with her. And she opens it up, and it's this big fucking toad inside. And she's like, you need to feed it. And so she gives her a strand of her hair. And the Ronan's like, this is fucking hair. And the girl's like, yeah, feed it to him. And so she gives it to the toad. And sure enough, Toad fucking chows down on the finest cuisine a toad could ask for. This strand of hair. And he munches down on it. And she's like, alright, fucking sure, why not, you know? But as they're feeding the toad, she notices that the little girl's ear is missing. And she asks her, she's like, what happened to your ear? And the girl tells her, oh, Mother Buddha chose me, and I had to give a piece of my flesh to appease the gods or whatever. And Ronan's like, what? You know? And then they hear a bunch of like was that a good rotating sound? I don't think it was. They hear a bunch of rotating sounds, and they turn and look, and all the Buddha statues have turned around and are now facing them. And there starts to be this loud noise that's gathering in the room, and they're like, what the fuck is that, you know? But before shit can really kick off for them, the uncle who like runs the temple comes running in and pulls them out of the room. And he tells all of them, he's like, go back to your fucking room, you know? And then we cut back to present time. We're back home, and this dude is here from social services to check up on Dodo and the mom. So he goes into the apartment with the mom, and he's like, we're going to ask each other, or I'm going to ask you some questions and shit. So they tell Dodo to just stay out in the hallway for right now. They leave the camera with her, though, and as Dodo's out here, she hears a voice telling her, you know, to come upstairs. And by upstairs, she means the fucking roof, because they go all the way to the roof, and she keeps going, what, down there? It's down there? What do you want me to do? And she goes and grabs a stool and goes over to the edge of the roof and puts the stool down and climbs up on, like, the wall and just fucking jumps down. And I was like, holy shit, I thought they were going to kill her off here and it was going to be fucking gnarly. But even creepier, I guess, is somehow the girl survives however big this fall was and then just climbs back up the building. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? So she climbs back up the building, and then she finds the secret room that the mom has up on this roof, full of these Buddha statues and all this creepy looking shit. And she gets this pair of scissors, and I don't know if the ghost thing was going to make it like her slit her wrist or whatever, because, you know, he could have just made her jump off the roof and kill herself, but that didn't kill her. But before anything, the mom like comes back up on the roof, and she's like, "What the fuck are you doing in here?" You know, and she pulls her out. But you know, that's another layer to like, why does the mom have all this creepy fucking, you know, these voodoo statues and shit? Voodoo, not voodoo, Buddha. Also though, the daughter gets really sick after this, and the mom has to rush her to the hospital. After this, we get this one I think is random, because we get a random scene of like this dude showing these kids how he's making like cups out of like molten lava or whatever, and this old lady walks up behind him and grabs a rod that has like the molten shit on the back and fucking sticks it in her mouth and kills herself. And it was like, what the fuck? What was that? We're back to the Ghostbusters tape, and they're stuck in their room. They're not supposed to come out, but of course they're like, "Fuck you, we're sneaking out," you know. So they sneak out, and they're going up this hill to where the tunnel is supposed to be. They're like, "Fuck it, we're going in the tunnel tonight. This is the whole like they're gonna get kicked out, I think, the next day." So they're like, "We're going in the fucking tunnel tonight," you know. But as they're working their way up the hill towards it, they get stopped because these people are walking by them, and they have like this fucking they have this like bamboo pole, and in the middle is a Buddha statue, and they're like humming and singing, and they're walking up the path towards the tunnel themselves, and so they have to hide so they're not seen. We cut back to present time, and we see Dodo is getting all these CAT scans and shit and MRIs on her brain. We see that she's real fucked up. She can't walk by herself. And we see x-rays of her head, and we see a mouthful of teeth. So it's like, oh, fuck, Dodo was the girl that we saw all fucked up in the beginning. The next thing that happens is, I believe, Social Services is coming to take Dodo away. Because we get back to her apartment, and there's cops there, and like they're surrounding the apartment. I think they're coming to take Dodo away because of, you know, Dodo can't walk and all this shit that's happening. And they're like, oh, it's this bitch that did it, you know? So Dodo leaves the girl. She makes her lay down in the backseat of the car, and she sneaks inside of the building to go and get their things and sneak back out. As she does this, though, the dude who ran the orphanage, who she called Dad, is walking by and like sees her in the car, and he gets in the car and he's talking, and he's like, "Where's your mom at?" And she's like, "Oh, she went inside to get some things or whatever." And he's like, "Hey, do you want to come home with me, you know?" And she's like, yeah, I do, you know? But then she's like, "Well, what will happen to Mom?" And the dude's like, you know, he's trying to think of something to answer. But then before he can figure out an answer, he looks, and the mom is coming back with like all their clothes and shit. And he has a moment where he's trying to think about what he should do in this situation. But the cops eventually turn around and see her, and they're like, "Hey, that's her. Fucking get her, you know?" And he's like, "Fuck, get in." And he lets her get in the car, and he starts it off, or he turns it on, and he drives away from the cops and shit. The mom tells him that she's on her way to this temple. It's not the same temple, I don't think, from the Ghostbusters tape. It's a different temple. This place looks nicer. And she's like, "Listen, it's been a long time since I've been here. You know, I think I remember the way." But as they're driving, they wind up in fucking Silent Hill PT, where they're just in a constant loop. They just keep going in a circle where it'll be this bucket that's on fire, and then it's this bicycle, and then it's this person hanging up on a telephone pole, and it just keeps happening over and over. And eventually they're like, "Fuck this." So they put it in reverse, and they try to reverse out of the loop. But their car ends up breaking down. And it breaks down right in front of the pole that that person was hanging on. And once again, this is when I was like, man, this bitch is crazy. Because she just has her window down during all of this. I was like, you need to roll that shit up. But not only does she keep the window rolled down, she takes the camera and she sticks her whole arm out of the car to film the person that's hanging up. But no one's hanging there. They're gone. So she's like, what the fuck? And right after that, all this banging and shit starts happening on their car. And it keeps getting louder and louder, and the banging's more aggressive and shit. And you know, the radio kicks on, and we hear like this whole thing of like, it was weird. It was like a gas CEO company, and there was an explosion, and then the CEO was found hanging like on a pole or something. Like, it was very weird what they were talking about. I didn't catch all of it, so I'm sure I butchered that. But yeah, the radio is fucking kicking off. That's banging on the car. But eventually it all calms down, and the car starts back up, and I guess they're free to go. So they make it to the temple. Um, After this, or no, I'm gonna be honest. This might have been. Hold on, give me a second. Um, okay, so I got that's later in the movie. We'll come back to that. Before that happened, we go back to the Ghostbusters tape, and this time they're back. They're up to the tunnel, and they're ready to go in. But as they get there, they see this fucking black goat. It's like not Black Walder. Well, Black Phillip from The Witch, and he's tied up on a tree. And this little girl is like tied up in this sheet, and she has all this writing over her face, and she's put on like this altar. And they're like, fuck, we gotta get her out of here. This is crazy, you know? But the dude's like, listen, we've come this far. We gotta go in this tunnel. So he like kicks open the door to the tunnel. And then they hear like babies crying and shit coming from down there. They would have probably left with the little girl. But since they heard kids crying down there, they're like, fuck, there might be even more girls like her down there. We have to go down there now. So the two dudes go through the tunnel. They leave Ronan here because she's pregnant and she isn't feeling good. So they leave her here with the kid. She's chilling out at the foot of the tunnel for a while until eventually the guy who kicked open the door to so not her boyfriend, but the other one, he comes crawling out of the tunnel and he's screaming and his face is all covered in scratches and blood. And he gets up and just goes running away. And she's like, what happened, you know? The camera then cuts into like night vision mode and we lose all sound. There's no sound anymore. And we see them carrying her boyfriend's body out of the tunnel. And they've covered his face up and shit. So he's fucking dead. It's like, we don't know what happened to him, but he's dead as fuck. So we also see like the uncle come over and slap Ronan in the face or whatever. And I was like, God damn, you know? So Ronan eventually, she's screaming and crying. This is all silent, but we see her doing this. Eventually she gets her camera back and she goes walking around looking for the other dude who was in the tunnel. And she sees him. She sees him like he'll keep walking by in different directions. And she follows him. She follows him through this room where there's like this fucking decapitated bull's head or something like on an altar. She eventually winds up in like this deserted part of town and she's looking for him. And she's walking and she hears this humming noise and she follows it into this building where we see all these people who I think they're the weird that you couldn't see their heads. So they were either all bowed down or they were in sacks. That's what I came up with. They were either in potato sacks or they were all bowed down and you just couldn't see their head. But standing in front of them was this dude who's just on fucking fire. He's just like burning up and shit. And it was crazy looking. She runs away from the room. She runs straight into the other dude who was in the tunnel. And she's like, hey, what's going on? And then he turns around and his face is like a demon now. And he charges her and fucking like bites into her arm and shit. And then he's like, oh, my teeth, they're so itchy. And then his teeth start falling out of his fucking mouth. And he runs away from her, runs into a building. She gets up and runs away. And she sees a bunch of, they look like fucking zombies. They're all these people, they're just in underwear. And they have all this lettering over their bodies. And they're just like staring at her. They're not moving, but they're just staring at her. And so she runs further away. She sees another guy who's on fire on top of like a flagpole. And then behind her, the other dude who was in the tunnel that just bit her jumps to his death off of a building and falls right behind her and kills himself. She runs, she gets in her car, and she drives away. And then we're back to present time. This is when we cut to them trying to get to the temple and the time loop stuff happens. Or not the time loop, but just, you know, going around in a circle and the same shit is there every time. That's when all that stuff happens. Eventually, they do get up to the temple they were going to. And these people are trying to cleanse the video camera that the Ghostbusters tape is on. and cleanse the daughter. And they're feeding her like these mint leaves, and they're doing this spell on the camera. And I kind of fucking didn't understand what they said here. But it was something along the way to get it out of the daughter was you couldn't feed her. You had to like starve her. And I'm not sure if they were like, you have to starve her to death, or if it's just you have to starve her until like all this is ended. But then there was something about the tape, like they couldn't cure the tape because the footage of the tunnel was broken, like it was fucked up or whatever. And so they're like, you need to fix the footage, but you know, it'll fuck you up. You can't let the daughter eat. You need to starve her to let the demon shit like work its way out of your body. So there's all this going on, okay? The next morning she wakes up and the school dude had stolen the video camera, and he leaves a note and tells her that, you know, he wants to feel what it's like to be a real dad, and he's taking this as like a sacrifice. He's gonna fix the footage and learn about this curse for her and shit, you know, and for the daughter. So that's what happens next. Also, this movie turns into a real emotional fucking movie. Like, there's the sad music keeps playing. There's this constant struggle of the mom knowing she needs to starve the daughter to cure her of this fucking like possession, but it's like the possession knows that's what she's doing, so it gives the daughter this like bacterial infection in her blood that needs these injections to survive, but you can't take them on the empty stomach because it has bad reactions, so you have to feed her and shit. So the mom like looks up on YouTube how to apply these injections herself, because she's like, I'm not going to feed the kid, I can't feed her, and she just gives it to her at home. The girl's skin eventually starts to turn into like that black muddy skin that we saw in the beginning, and she's real fucking sick, and like she's dying, you know, but the mom can't feed her, else it'll fucking get rid of everything she's done up to this point. And so she's crying, you know, and this is where like the daughter's telling her not to cry and all this stuff, and it's real fucking sad. And then we see she gets like a message on her phone, and it's from the dude who took the camera, and we see that he's repaired the footage of the fucking the tunnel. You know, he's learning all this stuff about the curse, and every time he does, we see like his nose is bleeding. He gets progressively sicker as he's learning about all this shit. His teeth start falling out. He learns about like this Buddhist monk who has like this fucking ritual that he does, that he's like, if I could talk to him, maybe I could figure out more, you know. He starts understanding more and more about the symbols and shit. And finally, the dude tells the mom how he's repaired the footage of, you know, the tunnel. It's all ready to go. He also says he's the one who called Social Security on her, or social services on her for the daughter. He's like, I didn't trust you. I'm sorry. You know, all this shit. I hope you can forgive me. And then we cut to him bashing his head in on the table because he's learned too much about the curse. So he fucking, you know, he's out. He's dead as fuck. And then after that video ends, the mom gets like text message after text message after text message of the tunnel video, and the ghost wants her to watch it. The mom is like, fuck, I'm not watching this, you know. Also, I couldn't help but think, like, the mom watched all of that footage happen, so then she's learned more about the curse herself, so wouldn't it have affected her the same way that it affected that dude, if she watched everything that he learned as well, you know? The mom takes the kid back to the temple, because she's getting progressively more sick, so she's going to see if there's something else they can do. When they get there, though, everyone's fucking possessed. The dude here is like fucking just kneeled down. He's like bleeding. I don't think he ever gets up. You never see what's fucked up with him, but he's fucked up. The woman here has her back turned to her, but she keeps like digging into the back of her neck, and she's bleeding and shit. And she's telling the daughter how her mom was going to give her over to the gods when she was pregnant with her and all this shit. There's this big, like, the mom falls over and her flashlight on the camera keeps, like, flickering on and off. And, you know, it's called, like, the woman moves around. Like, when the camera flashes off, it'll come over here and then over here. Until eventually the woman charges at her with this fucking demon face, got these yellow eyes and all this shit. And when they both fall over, like, the lady doesn't even attack her. She just charges her to where they fall over, and then the lady's, like, just laid out dead on the floor. We see Dodo is missing from her wheelchair. And when the mom looks up, Dodo is floating in the air. And eventually she, like, crashes down to the floor and shit. And the mom's like, oh, fuck, you know. So she has to take the kid to the hospital. And this is when they tell her about the bacterial infection that I mentioned earlier. And how she's malnourished and she's dehydrated, and they're going to keep her here to look after her in the ICU. They tell her that the daughter is far from being in good shape, and the mom should probably prepare herself for the worst. And as the mom is sitting here, she pulls up her phone and presses play on the tunnel footage. But as she does that, we still don't see it. As she does that, we see security footage of the daughter clearly being held by the hand of this bad ghost that's been throughout the movie. And it leads her out of the hospital, past everyone, past her mom, who's looking at her fucking phone at the tunnel footage, until eventually they find this dead lady, like, on the ground, who's just in underwear. And I think she belongs to the temple from these Ghostbuster tapes, because she has the same writing that's on all of the people. Also, she's not dead, because they get Dodo back in the hospital. They're like, what the fuck happened, you know? And at this point, they're like, yeah, Dodo's probably going to die. She's in real bad shape. And the girl is also in the hospital. And the mom goes inside and, like, writes, you know, takes pictures so she can see all the writing. And then she goes over, and I'm pretty sure she cuts off the ear on this girl. And I was like, what the fuck? I assume it's like the appease the gods, you needed some flesh or whatever. But still, pretty crazy. So, the mom goes back home, and then she's like, here, you guys can finally watch the tunnel footage. And we see the footage, and it's the two dudes walking around in the tunnel, and they find a bunch of Buddha statues. I keep saying Buddha. Buddha statues, like, facing these mirrors, and there's these tables with hair, like, locks of hair on it, and teeth, and all this shit. And eventually, the one dude, the boyfriend, gets fucking possessed, and he just starts scarfing down hair down his throat. And when the mirrors fall over and they start breaking, the dude who has the itchy teeth later is, like, trying to run away, but the mirrors, like, hit him and he falls over and everything goes dark. When he wakes back up, he sees the boyfriend smashing his head into the wall. He goes walking over to him, and the guy turns around, and his face it looks like those worms have dug into his face. He's got, like, holes in his fucking head. That explains why they covered up his fucking face with a cloth when they pulled him out of the tunnel. He charges at the guy, and the guy runs away. And that's it. That's the end of the tunnel tape. I'm gonna be honest, for the movie that spent the whole time building up, ooh, what happened in this tunnel? It seemed pretty much like everything that's happened so far in the movie. Like, there was nothing different. It was cool watching him scarf down all that hair. But besides that, you know, it was kind of a letdown. So then, you know, we see the mom basically going around, and she buys this dog that the girl had wanted earlier in the movie. They're at this pet store, and there was this dog there, and the mom wanted it. And she buys all these toys, and she takes them to the orphanage place. And basically, she's making this tape as a goodbye to her daughter. She's going to give up the daughter for her safety. Once again, this is at the point where I was like, yeah, that's the smart play. You were probably right all those years ago when you gave up the daughter. We also see that she copies all the writing that was on that lady, and she writes it on herself. We see her in the mirror, and like has all the writing on her body. Um, and so she goes back to the old temple, and also I was pretty sure she got that dog, and I was like, bitch, the curse is not ended. That dog could die right now. Like, what are you doing? Uh, but anyway, she goes back to the old temple where all this started, and she goes into the tunnel and breaks in, and she starts breaking all the mirrors that are in the tunnel. She starts like realigning all the hair and putting the teeth back where they belong. Um, and then she puts the camera up to the drawing of the symbol that we're supposed to memorize. And it like zooms in and takes up the whole screen. And it's like hard to look at. It hurts your eyes, like the writing. And they start doing the chant and it's flashing up these words in the middle. This is one of those moments where I went, no. And I turned my head. I was like, I ain't looking at this shit. You ain't getting me, you know? So it keeps repeating this whole sermon. You know, after this, we see the tape of the monk that the dude thought might have started all this. And it ends up being that the mom did actually go to that monk when she was pregnant. So that might have been the whole thing about her giving up the baby to the gods. And then the big twist thing at the end is this is one of those classic things where she's like, she's making this whole tape to spread the curse to everyone who's watching it, to take the curse away from her daughter. And she's like, I'm sorry, you know. So then the movie ends with her blindfolding herself and taking the sheet off of like this weird fucking tunnel thing and asking the audience what your name is. And it's supposed to be like, oh, you're cursed now, you know. And then she fucking bashes her head in on the table. And that's it. She kills herself. And that is the end of Incantation. This movie had made a box office of $5.7 million US. You know, I don't know what it, you know, went to with like Taiwanese money or whatever. But like I said, the most profitable Taiwanese, I think, just horror movie. I think it was horror movie. It wasn't just movie of all time, but you know, still pretty good on them. Let's do best of, worst of. My worst of is going to be the tunnel footage. I didn't think it lived up to the, you know, they build towards it for the whole movie. And it was just kind of like, all right, you know, we've seen this throughout the, like nothing new was happening. The fucking tape of you walking and seeing all them zombie dudes was way gnarlier than this tape. And then best of, it's probably going to be that, her looking for the dude with the itchy teeth and all the zombies dudes popping up and the guy on fire and the guy jumping behind her and killing himself. Yeah, it was really gnarly. So that's going to be my best of. And that is it. That's Incantation from 2022. Next week, I have no idea what we're going to watch. The only movie left on my movie picks, I need to go and look up some more to get them, is The Ring, the US version. So maybe we'll watch that. Tyler wanted to watch Smile, but I don't know if I'll have time to get, you know, for us to record that this week. So it probably won't be Smile. It might be The Ring, or it could honestly just be some fucking movie that I find, you know, before I make the podcast. So next week, maybe The Ring, maybe a surprise. Who knows? Maybe Smile. But yeah, that's about it. Go check out the gaming channel. Stuff's coming out over there all the time right now. A Sleeping Dogs video is finally out after all those weeks of me mentioning it. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks for watching. Come back again. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.